All right, so anyone who's trying to keep up with like the flood of information out there, you know how tough it can be to really get below the surface. Especially, if you're thinking about the UPSC exams, it's all about getting the real insights. And that's what we're trying to do here with these deep dives. Today, we're looking at something pretty fundamental to India's economy, right? The construction sector.
Yeah.
And we're going to take a closer look at the workforce, the people who make it all happen.
Yeah, this is a sector that really, I think, shows India's economic ambitions. I mean, think about it. 9% of the national GDP, something like that. And projections are saying it could hit, what, $1.4 trillion in the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty impressive, right? And you can't forget the human side of it all. We're talking about a projected workforce of 3 crore by 2030. So naturally, you have to ask, can this kind of growth really be sustained? I mean, can we keep growing and also make sure that this huge workforce is taken care of?
For sure. I mean, even someone like N. Subramanian from Larsen and Toubro, he's been talking about these potential labor shortages, right? And I know it's easy to jump to the conclusion that, oh, it's because of welfare schemes, people aren't moving around as much. But when we really dig into these articles from The Hindu, it becomes clear that there's a much more complex situation going on, a lot more structural challenges at play.
And getting to those like fundamental barriers, that's what's really interesting. Our mission today is to use these insights from the Hindu, right, and really break down these systemic issues that are affecting the movement, and really importantly, the security of millions of construction workers. I mean, these are the people who are literally building the future, right?
Okay, so the picture that the Hindu is painting is one of like a pretty fragmented reality. What they're saying is that there's this huge dependence on migrant laborers, people moving around for work. And, that immediately raises all sorts of questions about things like job security, the fact that they have to relocate so often. And it seems like they're having a real tough time getting consistent welfare support.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. It's like this constant uncertainty, this precarity, that's really shaping the experience for so many people in the construction workforce. And, we have the Building and Other Construction Workers Act of 1996, the BOCW Act. It was supposed to be this, like, safety net, But when you see what the Hindu is reporting, it seems like there's a pretty big gap between what the law says and how things are actually playing out in reality.
Exactly. And it's kind of shocking, really, when you see the Hindu highlighting this underutilization of these welfare funds. We're talking about like 70,000 crore or something like that, collected through this MONES, right, which is basically a tax on construction projects that's supposed to go towards worker welfare. But a lot of it is just sitting there, unspent. It just seems crazy. The money's there, but all this bureaucracy is getting in the way, stopping it from actually reaching the people who need it.
Exactly. The articles go into this in detail, right? This whole issue of documentation, how much paperwork is needed just to apply for these benefits. Think about a migrant laborer, right? Their life is constantly in motion. They might not have stable housing, which makes it super tough to get all those basic documents, ID proofs, birth certificates, proof of residence. Imagine trying to deal with all that bureaucracy. When you're always on the move for work, it's overwhelming.
It's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And then on top of that, there's this rule about a 90-day employment certificate that needs to come from the employer every year. So, okay, on the surface, that sounds like a reasonable way to prove you've been working, right? But what the Hindu is saying is that a lot of contractors, they just won't or maybe can't provide these certificates.
And, that's not just some minor technicality. I mean, you've got these smaller contractors that are operating on such tight margins. To them, having to issue all these certificates, it's like an extra cost. And maybe they're not even keen on having all their labor relationships be completely official, So the workers end up stuck, unable to show that they're actually eligible for these benefits. It really highlights how much power the contractors have in this whole equation.
So we have this national act, but when it comes to actually making it work, that falls on each individual state, right? The Hindu mentions this 1-2% construction cess that each state collects under the BOCW Act. And that report from the Parliamentary Standing Committee in 2023, it's pretty eye-opening. It's like something like 75% of all that money, it's just not being used.
Yeah, that level of like underutilization, it really tells you there's something fundamentally wrong with the system. The articles point to a few key things. One, the worker databases are all fragmented, different states, they don't have systems that talk to each other. And then the rules for verifying everything are all over the place, different from state to state. And the registration process itself, well, let's just say it's not known for being user-friendly. It's this perfect storm of inefficiency where the people who are most in need, the workers, they're the ones who end up getting left out.
And we're not just talking about numbers on a spreadsheet here, right? There's a real human cost. The Hindu gives this example of like what happens when there are disruptions to the work. You have heat waves or they have to stop construction because of pollution, especially in North India. That suddenly throws hundreds of thousands of workers out of a job.
You're right. Those kinds of disruptions, they just underscore how fragile their livelihoods are. And when you combine that sudden loss of income with the fact that it's already so hard to access welfare support, especially when they need it most, you start to really understand how vulnerable these workers are.
And then you add in the whole like layer of complexity that comes with interstate migration, because it seems like a big chunk of the construction workforce, they're regularly moving between states to find work.
Absolutely. And that mobility, it's crucial for them to make a living, and it's crucial for the industry to function. But of course, it creates a whole new set of problems. The Hindu really emphasizes this. The different welfare schemes in different states, they just don't talk to each other. They don't connect. You can have someone who's registered for benefits in, say, Haryana, and then they move to Delhi for work, and boom, they've lost access to those benefits. It's like their welfare record just doesn't travel with them.
It's like every time they cross a state line, they have to start over from scratch. I mean, why even bother with all the hassle of registration if those benefits are basically trapped in one state and they don't follow you to where you're actually working?
It's a huge disincentive. And when workers aren't registered where they're working, they're basically invisible to the system. They're outside that safety net. And that just makes them even more vulnerable to things like economic shocks.
So we've laid out all these challenges, but okay, there's a silver lining here because the Hindu also talks about some potential solutions, which is definitely good news. This idea of a unified national labor identification system, that seems like a pretty crucial step forward.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And, the way they compare to that one nation, one ration card scheme, it makes it a lot easier to grasp. The basic idea is to have the central database for welfare so that no matter which state a construction worker is in, they can still get the benefits they're entitled to.
Makes sense. And linking the BOCW registrations to the UAN, that universal account number on the eShram portal, that seems like a pretty logical, efficient way to make this interstate portability thing actually work.
What's really exciting is the possibility of using what we already have, right? The digital public infrastructure, to get those benefits out to people. If state governments were to get on board with open source digital platforms, it could really streamline the whole process, make it way more efficient and definitely more transparent. And when we talk about digital public infrastructure here, we're talking about those shared platforms, technology and data systems that different states can use to manage welfare. It helps create a more unified approach.
So basically, having a system that can track everything in real time, all in one place, that could be a game changer. It would cut down on all those bureaucratic delays and make the whole thing a lot more transparent, when you say. And this idea of using Aadhaar-based authentication, that could also help a lot, make the system less prone to errors.
For sure. Technology can be a really powerful tool to fix a lot of these inefficiencies. But it's not enough just to have the tech, right? We also need to make the whole process simpler, easier for people to actually use.
Right. The Hindu makes a big point about that, how important it is to simplify all that documentation stuff. I mean, accepting different kinds of proof and, maybe relaxing some of those super strict rules about verifying everything, that would be a big help.
Totally. And they also talk about doing these bulk registrations like right there at the construction sites, especially for those big projects. That would get a lot more workers registered and make sure that the records are accurate from the get-go.
But it's not just about making sure people can access welfare, right? The Hindu is also saying that we need to invest in skill development within the construction sector. It's not just about having lots of workers, it's about having workers who have the right skills to do the job well.
Absolutely. To really solve these labor shortage problems, we need to do two things. We need more workers, yes, but we also need to make sure those workers have the skills they need. If we want to boost productivity, improve the quality of the work, and make sure people stick around in the industry, we need solid, well-designed skill development programs.
But it's not just about skills, right? The Hindu also makes a point about how important it is to make sure that working conditions are safe and dignified.
Yeah, those two things go hand in hand. If workers feel valued and respected, if they feel safe at work, they're much more likely to stay in the industry and invest in their skills. Construction firms have a responsibility here. They need to commit to long-term skill building and make those workplaces better, safer.
So the big takeaway here, and the Hindu is really clear about this, If we want to fix the labor shortages in the construction sector, it's not enough to just get more people onto the work sites. We have to address these deep-rooted systemic issues that the articles have been highlighting.
Exactly. It's about that fragmentation of employment, the nightmare of documentation, and the fact that your welfare benefits don't follow you across state lines. Those are the big problems that we need to tackle. And the solutions that Hindu is talking about, things like creating a unified welfare system for the whole country, using technology in a smart way, simplifying all the bureaucracy, and investing in skill development, those are all crucial steps towards building a workforce that's more inclusive, more efficient, and ultimately more sustainable.
And at the end of the day, as the articles point out, if you want the construction industry to keep growing and thriving, you have to take care of the workers. I mean, those two things, they're totally connected. You can't have one without the other.
So let's do a quick recap of what we've covered today. We started by talking about how important the construction sector is to India's economy, but then we dove into the challenges that the workforce is facing because of all these systemic problems. And then we looked at some of the potential solutions, from creating a national welfare system to making sure that workers have the skills they need and that working conditions are decent.
And for all of you UPSC aspirants out there listening, it's so important to understand that making sure workers are taken care of, it's not just some nice to have. It's not just about social justice. It's fundamental to India's economic growth. Think about this. What are the lessons we can learn from the construction sector, from the problems and the solutions that we've been discussing? How can we apply those lessons to other parts of the economy that are growing really fast? That's something to think about as you're studying. Now, all of this has been based on these really insightful articles from The Hindu. It's given us a really valuable look at a crucial issue. This stuff is super relevant for mains, understanding socioeconomic challenges and policy interventions. And for prelims, it gives you a good foundation in legislation like the BOCW Act and key economic indicators. If you found this discussion helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more deep dives like this, and let us know what you think in the comments. If you've got any more questions, drop them in the comments too. And just so everyone knows, all of this information comes from The Hindu, a really reliable source for current affairs.